You're going to want to focus on the good parts, about how you do those good parts more. You're a passionate creative, and so are we. Join me, Brie Stockwell, and my podcast partner, Len Metcalf, as we navigate the ups and downs of living creative lives while teaching you how to do it too. Time to pull back the curtain on our creative affair.
Welcome. Today, we're talking about writing about your art. Whether it's your photography, your poetry, your painting, your drawing, your musical performances, there's great benefits to be had by writing about your art. Now, Brie, do you have any experience with this? Like, why should we be writing about our art?
Why not?
That's like climbing Everest. It's there, isn't it?
I know. I do have some experience. I actually don't have as much as I want to, because I know if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, me again with my writing stuff, but I think I'm very over this block about thinking I'm not a good writer or that I should write about my stuff. So I think I'm way past that. So I would like to do this more. I think I need some prompts or, more of a reason, and I'm working on some things. But I did find, so in 2021, I had a solo exhibition in my home, and I kind of wrote about each thing. Let me think. I had to kind of write an overview, which I feel like was the artist's statement about the exhibition. But then I took people on a journey through the art, through my photographs, and I wrote along the way. And it was a little bit different because I kind of felt like I didn't know what I was doing, but it was very like from my heart, and like I wasn't bogged down in like, this is how a professional photographer has to do things. And I just wrote what I wanted to. And I thought it was a beautiful journey, actually. And that I think is up on my website. I'll put a link to that because I put the words in there as well. When I have a link to that in my portfolio, my online portfolio with those words. So that's kind of more of my experience, more formal writing about my art. Other than that, I like to write on Instagram. Oh, I do have one other thing, which I can share in a minute. But I do like to write more about it sometimes on Instagram or Facebook when I'm feeling inspired to kind of share. I'm feeling something about the work and I just want to share it. I'm pushing myself to be more vulnerable. It's kind of fun. It's a little scary.
So why? Why write? Why write about your art? You're telling us how there.
Right.
There's a lot of how.
Right. I know. Okay. Thanks for calling me out. Well, I think by writing about my art, it has been to help me learn more about myself, or because I have felt called in a way to share something that I've learned. And by writing it, it actually helps me formalize that. Like, what is it that I've actually learned? Put that into something that's more solid, like words, like words that are combinations of letters and things. And also, I write about my art so that other people can learn from it as well, or that there's a possibility. I don't expect other people to learn from me, but that there's a possibility that someone might be feeling the same way or might need what I have to say in the moment. And I definitely find out a lot more about myself as I do that work. And so it's interesting. It's kind of a cycle, right? Like I feel like I've learned something. I write about it. As I'm writing about it, I learn even more. I share it. And in the sharing of it, I actually think about it more often. Like there's there's something interesting about being vulnerable with your writing and putting that out there to the world, explaining yourself versus just the photo, because I can't just hide behind the photo anymore. You see more of me in the words. That feels really like I'm burying my soul, which is so interesting. I did not used to do that. That's why I'm like, I have this strange desire. I'm even like shaking my arms. I really do have this strange desire to be a lot more vulnerable, to just test it and see what it feels like. And I think that's what happens when we write, when we share things with the world and we learn more about ourselves.
So there's two interesting audiences here for writing about our work, isn't there? There's the people who may be looking at the artwork and reading the writing to learn more about you and the artwork and what you were thinking, and maybe change their opinion and thoughts. It could be conceptually or emotionally about the artwork. And the other side of that is writing it for ourselves as a means of understanding the artwork better and exploring our thoughts, feelings, concepts, and emotions about the artwork. And often they're put together because we do both of them at the same time. Uh, I try not to write for an audience just in the same way as I try not to photograph for an audience. I try to photograph and make art for myself. No, I don't always succeed in that, but I try to make it all about me and for my own gratification. And I try to do that with my words as well, and not be thinking, oh, what is the audience going to think about me when I do write this sort of stuff? But that's really hard to let go of, isn't it? Um, it changes our relationship to our art. The more we converse, the more conversations we have, the more words and concepts we bring into the artwork, the more we understand it, and the more, I'm going to say, better our work becomes, because we're
Better. So good. You guys, we're so correct with our grammar here.
it improves our understanding. It improves our
Ooh,
work, doesn't it?
yeah. I like that one. But I also like betterer too.
Yeah, let's take some liberties with language.
We can do
Why
whatever
not
we
have a bit
want.
of a stir? That's right.
Yeah, right. I know. We can do
Um,
it whatever we want. I agree with you. I think that, well, scratch what I just said. I agree and I disagree. Because I think being able to let go of what the audience thinks means that we've been holding on to the idea that the audience is thinking something, or there's something that we expect our audience to think about our work. And I think that doesn't have to be the case. I think I've trained myself a lot more, and maybe this is what me putting my writing out is doing for me, just to be vulnerable, to see what I think, what's happening in my own head about what I think other people are thinking about my work, as I'm more open about it. And now that I say that, I actually know that I could be a lot more open about it than I have been in the past. Even though it has felt like a stretch for me, I know I can actually stretch even more, because it's not that I don't care about y'all. It's it's not that I don't care what y'all think. It's that I care the most about what I think about my work. And I think that's what you're saying, Len. So that's where I agree with you, is that what we think about our work matters most. And that is actually the most important thing. And so, I think you and I are on the same page with that, which is we both make art for ourselves. And then it's what we do with it afterwards. I may write about my work for you as the audience, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I have a whole zine. Hopefully it's released by now, because I've been talking about it all year, literally. So it's just about ready to go, but I'm about to release it, hopefully this week. So But that's the thing is like, we do put our things out there for other people. Like, I want you as the audience to read about it. And I wrote this zine for you to, to help you with your art. Like, I already know what I think about it. And then putting my words out kind of helps me formulate things. And then hopefully that helps you. Does that make sense? I think I do it in two
I'm
ways.
processing that. I'm processing that. I
I think there's
because
sometimes I write.
you're
Well, I
writing
was
a
gonna say,
zine for a different reason, aren't you? That's not just
right.
about writing about your art. You're writing then with a very set purpose, and I think this is part of the crux as to explore and try to understand why we're writing and give ourselves a purpose, and that makes the writing easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You said that at the very beginning, and as we're going through, that's really the crux we need to get down to is why. Why is it important and what should we be doing it for? And I think a zine or a book or statements to go with your work are incredibly important. But also, there's the stories to tell,
Right.
the near misses, the excitement, the joys, the hatred, the disappointment. Um, all these stories need to be shared.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing, another thing that I probably don't do as much, which I think could be really beneficial for me, is to write about how I actually made it. What why, like, how I felt in the making of it. Why did I make it? And really exploring those things, even just for myself, like, what was I trying to achieve in that moment? And I know I've had some times recently where I've made photographs and not understood them. And I actually think if I went in and pulled those photographs and wrote about them, I'm going to mention my friend Sarah Marino here, because I think we were talking on a Discord. So we were just chatting. Um, and she actually said it's really helpful to write about 1,000 words about a piece of art if you are trying to understand it. It helps you understand it better. And then I messaged her and she sent me this a little clip of a PDF from one of her ebooks, which I will link to in the notes because there's a workbook. This is for landscape photographers. It's called Beyond the Grand Landscape. It's an ebook and workbook. So if you want to understand, she actually takes you through and, gives you like journaling prompts. But I think if I took those photographs that I'm confused about and just started writing about them with some prompts or with the idea in mind that I want to understand more, what was I trying to do with this? Instead of just kind of going, well, I don't really know what's happening here. Maybe later I'll find out, which I could, but I actually think that might be beneficial to me. So maybe I'm going to challenge myself to do that. I don't know. Did I just take us on a tangent? I love doing that. I'm just saying, if there's things that you don't understand about your own work, writing about them on purpose. This is different than the journaling that we're going to talk about next week, right? For the next episode. Okay, so y'all, you can look forward to that. But writing about a piece of artwork on purpose to help you understand it better when you don't understand it, I think can be very enlightening.
So I'm going to throw out a question here. I'm one of my typical students, and I'm play acting. Brie,
Okay.
but Brie, I just take the photograph because I like it, and it's a beautiful photograph. I haven't got any words about this. 1,000 words? You've got to be kidding! How? I took it because it was there, and I loved it. And like, where do I start this whole process? I can't write about my
Mm.
work.
I know that you have a lot to say about this, Len. Okay, so there's a couple things I'm going to say. Is one, as a coach, I'd be like, well, do you think you have something more to say than it's just beautiful art? And I make photos that I don't actually care if I say more about them. However, if you want to say more about your art, maybe you can pull 10 to 50 photos, and some are going to stand out to you that you're going to want to write about, that you're going to want to know more about. I don't think, and I know we're talking about photos, but this is for anyone who's like a creative, who's creating something, piece of music. Like we're always creating little things, right? If you're an artist, you're creating, little bits or trying things, right? So if in the scope of, I don't know however many, a small collection of your work, if some you just made to look pretty, and there are going to be some that you just made to look pretty, and then there are going to be others that definitely stand out as something special that you are going to want to say more about. And so why not start there? So who cares if it's just something pretty? That's not the one you want to start with anyway. What do you tell your students?
Well, you can start small. Like I think
Yeah,
building up to 1,000 words, like that's even scary for me.
totally.
But
Same.
I know that I could and that I do, and that these stories do emerge from my work. But even just describing it graphically, uh, you could describe it technically, you could describe it compositionally, you could describe the colors and the composition. Like you, you don't immediately go into the esoteric meaning of this artwork and the deep catharsis that you had creating it.
How your
Uh,
life has changed.
yeah, how your life has changed forever from making
Right.
this amazing piece of artwork. That takes a lot of work on
Mm-hmm.
yourself and in your art, and pursuing that as a goal and working on it. We start with, oh, this is a seascape. Uh, there's lots of blues, and we can start describing what the blues are, maybe how they make you feel, what sort of mood that you were trying to play with. Even simple things like the location and the time of day. And then we could keep going a little bit further and further and saying, well, what were we feeling? What sort of impression were we trying to create? And just pushing out further from the factual, the real
Mm-hmm.
concrete part of it, um, into the deeper meaning and the deeper sets of feelings that are there. Uh, and slowly, by exploring that and playing with it, uh, this conversation that you have with the work starts to grow. I really think a good way to do this is to actually have a conversation with someone. So you could actually step back before the writing and actually talk to another artist or a friend or your lover or partner or something, or one of your children or your parents
Or yourself.
or
I
yourself.
I think I think you can voice record notes. Hey Brie, I think that's okay too. Anyway, go ahead. I interrupted.
Well, that conversation is really valuable, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
this is why I love going to art galleries with someone. Is you start
Yes.
talking about the art and why you like it, and what works for you, and why there's this incredible engagement with you. And by doing so, your language increases, your visual vocabulary increases, your understanding of how symbols work differently for different people changes and shifts. And then you'll read the bit of writing next to it, and that'll affect it as well. What we're actually advocating here, folks, is that by engaging deeper into your art in a conversational manner through words, you'll understand it better, and you'll understand yourself and the process of art making much better.
And I think what you're talking about, Len, is that's that's where you start. Like that's the practice. And so when I said ask yourself the question, do I want to write about this? Maybe you don't have, you know, maybe you're not ready. You aren't so practiced in the art of writing about it or writing about your work. But if you just took that, whatever that you said was pretty, like, this is pretty, I don't have much to say. And you were like, but I want to practice. Of course, I want to write about this because I want to practice. And it's in the practice of writing about something that you don't think that you have much to say about. That's when you discover that you do actually have so much more to say about something than you thought that you did. And so if you want to challenge yourself to write about that thing that you just was like, I don't know what I have to say about it, that's where the real work is. Like, that's where you find out that you actually have so much more to say. So I think that's a beautiful practice to start with those things that you talked about, Len, in like for anything that you're doing.
Mm. Perhaps it might be worth sharing how I learnt to write. Um, I struggled with English at school. In fact, I missed out on going to a selective school because of my English. I have this huge block about that I can't write, I can't spell. Um, I also thought I wasn't a very good public speaker. And uh, I started writing technical manuals and lesson plans for my business, like an operations manual. And uh, this is how you run a lesson so that all my staff could run the same lesson identically, or, have the basics for it. And then I progressed into writing when I lived overseas as an expat for a number of years. I was living in the Middle East for 3 years. I started writing really long letters home, and I mean like 10,000 word letters. I was bored, but I wanted to keep my connection with my friends and family. So I wrote observational stories about the society and where I was working and what I was doing. And uh, this confidence just slowly built up over time, and it started to grow. I have no idea how I did my theses for my master's degree and all the other degrees that I've done. I struggled with every one of them. And then my mate Petey said to me, who's a linguist and an author, "You write really beautifully, Len. Um, s- Stop with this self-deprecating thing that you've got going on. You just need a good editor to help you sort it out, because um, you think it's no good, but it's really quite wonderful." And then that was the step. And then I actually wrote his name and I had it on a post-it note on my computer. And then I started writing about my art, and it grew and it grew
Mm.
and it
Yes.
grew.
Like your beard.
And I like my beard, and I'm always playing with it, folks.
I
And
know.
it grew into writing articles for magazines. So now I'm a regular contributor to a magazine, and uh, I'm working on books at right at this moment, writing books, and uh, it's grown and grown and grown. And one of the things I had to let go of is it has to have an introduction, a middle, and an end, and all this sort
Mm.
of structured way of doing it that everyone told me at school that this is how you're supposed to write. And instead,
Right.
now I just write how I speak, and I let it flow out of me, and I try and get it down as quickly as possible. And it's still hard work. And I get blocked up and I stop, and I have periods of years where I find it really stressful to write. And then there's other moments in my life where I write every day prolifically about my art and my work, and it just flows and flows out of me. So it's been a very confronting and slow journey to get to this point where, if you ask me now, I can talk at depth and at length about my artwork. It's such a beautiful thing.
So I love that you wrote these long letters. This is before cell phones. Remember when you wrote letters to
I'd
each other
mail them.
before cell phones? Right, I
I'd
know.
desktop publish them and put my photos in there, and I made a magazine, and I used to post this magazine back to my friends with all these silly stories in them.
I
I've still
mean,
got them all somewhere.
but here's the beautiful thing that I see is it's taken practice. It's taken opening yourself up to possibilities and then putting in the practice, because you cannot, we all know as artists, if you ask any musician, anyone who creates, you cannot replicate the practice to getting your hands sturdy. And that also goes for the writing part, right? Like if you want to write and if you want to know more about your art, if you want to be able to explain your art to other people well, you have to put in the time. You have to write about it. You have to write about the same piece 10 times maybe before, do one version, toss it, do another version, toss it, maybe do 10 versions, feed it all into ChatGPT and tell it to create a whole one, whatever it is that you need to do with it, right? But I love ChatGPT. But it's the practice of it. Nothing replaces it ever. And so you've just got to decide that you want to do it, and you just got to go in and get your hands dirty. And if you can get past some of the blocks or do it anyway, I think we're all the better because we're doing this writing with our work. So, and I love that.
I've just thought of something, and this nails the question for you as well, and for me. We write about our work because we want to make better work. It's really that simple. It's a tool for us to understand our work better and to push ourselves harder around our work. Like you and I and our listeners, I'm guessing, all want to make better art. Like it's a lifelong goal, and writing about it is one of these tools that's incredibly effective for increasing your knowledge and understanding about what's going on in there with the art and your relationship to it. And it has the wonderful benefit of entertaining other people and educating them about your work as well. There's your reason for doing it, Brie,
Absolutely. And
to
I'm going to
take
add a
better
little,
work.
yes. And I'm going to add a little caveat to that, which is if you're writing to make better work and you're writing about maybe you're writing about the technicals and how you did it and, to help yourself understand more. And you are trying to learn how to become betterer, to improve. You're going to want to focus on the good parts, about how you do those good parts more versus the parts that you don't like. Those can I don't actually, and maybe you can disagree with me on this, Len. I don't actually think you need to focus on the parts that you don't like. You just focus on the pieces that you do, that you want to do more of, and write about those and how they make you feel, and how I don't, whatever, talk yourself around those parts. Because when we focus on the good things, on the great things that we're doing, on the things that light us up and inspire us, we do more of those things. And for sure, we can give ourselves some critique and say, you know what? I didn't really love that part. I don't need to do that part again. I feel like that's all you need to say about it, and take the parts that you do love and talk about those. And
Yeah,
that's what's going to make you better. Mm-hmm.
it's like driving a race car. You don't concentrate on missing a tree. You concentrate on the gap where you're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And concentrating on the bits that you do well is very important. I would
Yeah.
also add to all of that exploring who you are and the meaning behind it, and that the why, the deeper emotional connection, uh, that's part of the path to improving as well. Like, why am I taking photographs about this particular tree? Is figuring that out for myself has become a gateway to allowing myself to pursue that even more, and also has given me a deep understanding of why I'm photographing, and it's also changed my approach. So I'm more ceremonial about respect and forest bathing while I'm actually pursuing photographing the trees. So the whole spiritual, psychological learning side of it keeps growing through this reflection.
Mm,
Uh, it's really, really beautiful.
I love that. I still haven't figured out why I like to photograph rocks, so I'll let you know when I do. I just
Mm.
love them, but I don't quite totally know yet. So I think
Well,
that
maybe
begs for some exploration.
maybe it's about grounding. Rocks are really
Hmm.
grounding elements, and uh, they make you feel um, a part of something much bigger, and they're solid. They're not moving anywhere. They're staying there.
Hmm.
Now, it might not be true, but that's just throwing out some ideas, and see how we're having a conversation about them.
Right,
And
right.
Brie might go, "No, that's a load of bullshit. I'm not listening to any of that." Or she might go, "Oh, yeah, maybe I get some sort of emotion from rocks. Maybe I get
Yeah.
some sort of feeling from them."
I also think, and maybe we just close with this because but I also think that you can make art, and I'm thinking about myself doing this and considering, um, on purpose, noticing certain things while I'm creating, as I like to be. I'm focusing lately more being super present and noticing what's happening while I'm doing things. I'm getting a lot from that lately. And so maybe that's what I actually do while I'm photographing or while I'm creating is think about what I would say while I'm doing it. And then taking the photograph and then actually writing those things out. Like I could make some voice notes about it. And I know people that like take journals with them, um, and have the art journals while they do these things. I'm not that great at them because it kind of feels like it interrupts my flow, but maybe it doesn't. So, but maybe I'll use my phone for voice notes. I think that could be a good segue into our next one, which is about journaling.
It's as a little tip. Sometimes we don't understand the art that we make today,
Hmm.
and like I understand the art that I made a year or 5 years ago better than the art that I'm making today. So, writing about work that is quite old could be an easier thing to do
Hmm.
than writing about art that you just made today. So, just as a little hint there, if you're
Mm,
really struggling, go back a couple of years and write about and start exploring about what that work meant to you and what it means to you now. And there will be all sorts of interesting learnings that have appeared in that period of time since making it.
I
What a
love that.
lovely spot to finish, hey?
Yes. So good. Len, that was really lovely. I love these conversations. We actually recorded for a shorter time that we chatted ahead of time. So I don't know how that's possible.
We always start chatting and then Bree goes, "We should be recording this." And
I know. And
but
then,
we have
so
we
then
have
we
to
do.
stop talking and start recording the podcast.
I'm
So
like, pause, don't talk anymore. Just press record and then tell me that thing. Because we want you to hear it fresh. So,
that's
anyway,
right.
Len, what a lovely conversation. Y'all, we want to hear from you. If you were inspired by this and you write something about your work and you want to share it with us, you can email it create at a creativeaffairpodcast.com. We'd love to read what you wrote. So feel free to send that along and have a conversation with us. So
We love conversations with everybody.
totally. Well, that's all from me. Until next time when we talk about journaling.
Okay, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Well, wasn't that fun? As we close another episode of A Creative Affair, would you click on your podcast player and leave us a 5-star review and share with another passionate creative like yourself? Thanks. To find out more about our creative work and mentoring, visit Len at lenschool.com or me, Brie, at creativemindscoach.com.